Hi everyone, it's Nicole with a Paper Doll Art Journaling page. This is my July 2014 page, and I created a girl with Simon, of course, like I've done with all of my pages, and then I used a really fun background page that had these houses already in it, which I love because it immediately created a scene without a lot of additional work. Like always, I'm starting by inking up my doll stamp and stamping her on some text paper. This is a scrap of paper that I've used before. And I'm using the Prima handle stamp block, which is perfect for these 6x8 stamps because they are so large. I love the handle. It really helps kind of hold on to the stamp block. And before I was using a large stamp block, but it was a little bit tricky to hold on to just because of the size, and I would drop it oftentimes and kind of mess up parts of my project. So I really love the handle on this stamp block. I think it makes it excellent for using with your Prima doll stamps. Now I am using leftover pattern papers from, excuse me, the July 2014 card kit, and these pattern papers are from the Pen Pals 6x6 paper pad from Pink Paisley. And what I love about this is I love the colors of this paper pad, and because I thought it would be fun and appropriate for July for at least those of us who live in the United States, I kind of made her outfit red, white, and blue. The page actually has nothing to do with the 4th of July or anything like that, but I love red, white, and blue together anyway, and I thought that that was kind of fun and kind of maybe went with the July theme. Now I stamped her outfit on several scraps of this Pen Pals, or the Pen Pal 6x6 paper scraps, and actually used 4 for her dress. So once I have all of her dress pieces cut out, which I did this really opposite of how I normally do this. I generally start by stamping and coloring in the skin and hair and then moving on to the clothes. And I stamped the doll, but I went right to the clothes. I think the whole page design really was inspired by the outfit, especially for this particular page. I'll piece together all of the little elements. I did the bodice of the dress a little different than the waistband and skirt, of course, so piece all of these together, and that'll be really fun, I think. Now I'll move on to coloring in my doll. Like all of the dolls I have done here for 2014, I'm using Copic markers, coloring in the skin and hair. I think with these projects, you can stamp them on plain white cardstock if you want to and color them in. I really like, because the dolls don't have faces, which you could also add if you wanted to. You could either hand draw them, or there is a stamp set now where you could add some faces, but I really kind of like them this way. I think it adds to that whole artsy journaling type of feel. But I love that the text adds a little something to the skin and hair portions of the doll, especially when the patterns in the dress, because I'm using pattern paper and paper piecing to put together the outfits, it really just adds a little something to the design. I am using text paper that is no longer available. It's just something I had in my stash left over. If you want to use a similar type of paper, I have listed and linked several that I use or that I have found on the blog post that corresponds with this video and project. So if you're looking for something similar, you might want to check that out. With Copics, you can add as much color as you need to. I kept kind of building up until I got the exact color I wanted to. Just keep building and building. That is the great thing about these, is you can go over it as many times as you need to get the exact color you want. Always start lighter and go darker. With the hair, I really recommend probably using about 3 shades to get a more natural look. I ended up using, I think, 4 here because I just didn't get it quite as dark as I wanted to with the first 3 colors I chose. And I'm using what's called a feathering technique, which is just kind of flicking the marker one direction and then up from the other to get that more natural looking hair. You can tell that I did not stay in the lines at all with this, which is fine because I'm cutting her out. I like the freedom that allows. I don't have to worry so much about staying in the lines. Now once I get her hair all colored in, get that exactly the way I want it to look, I'm going to go ahead, go back in with my other marker maybe and add just a little bit more. And then I thought I needed to add a little bit for her cheeks, which you can't see a whole lot. I think in video it's a little hard to see. It adds a tiny touch of color in real life. And then I went back into with the skin and darkened it up just a little bit more too. If you are worried about the Copic's kind of bleeding the ink line, the stamped line that you've created, you can always let it dry really good in between each application of color, which is what I did here. I let the skin dry while I worked on her hair and then go back over it, and that really does help with that. I've glued her dress in place, and I'll go back in with some, I'm using Cool Gray markers this time. I've also used Warm Gray in the past. Whatever I think looks the best with the outfit or design that I'm creating. And I am adding some shading and dimension to the paper pieced cutout items here. Just like her skin, I really want the outfit to have some of that depth and dimension and not look so one-dimensional. I want it to look more like her skin and hair. So I'm going in with my Copic markers and adding some of that shading and detailing to her outfit. With her shoes, I'm using the black Sakura gel marker and just coloring over those to really make them nice, shiny black. You could use a flat type black marker as well if you didn't want them to be kind of this shiny looking patent leather, I guess. I'm using a phrase from the My Favorite Things Boca Builder stamp set. Just stamp that with some My Favorite Things Black Licorice Hybrid ink. And then this little heart is from the Simon Says Stamp Sending Happy Thoughts stamp set. And I'm stamping it with the My Favorite Things Wild Cherry ink using both first and second generation stamping. This little scrap of black and white paper is going to be the landscape for my art journal page. It's from a crepe paper 6x6 paper pad. It was just a scrap. That was the only piece of it I had left, but I thought it blended well with the background of my page, which is from the crepe paper open book collection, I believe, and it was a 6x6 design that I cut down to 6x8 for my art journal base. Now I'm using this little letter stamp also from the Simon Says Stamp Sending Happy Thoughts stamp set. It's the perfect size for this design, and I'm stamping a whole bunch of little letters on the pattern papers from the Pink Paisley Pen Pals paper pad that I have left over. I had quite a few from this one. You can see I used some for her dress, and then I used some here for the letters. Really fun. I like that these kind of coordinate. And then I will stamp Simon on the text paper as well. Simon the dog is kind of the mascot for SimonsSaysStamp.com. And I love, because I'm using the leftovers from the card kit every month, I incorporated Simon into my art journal pages all year long. I just thought it was a fun little way to kind of showcase that I'm using elements and things from the Simon Says Stamp card kits. So once I have him all colored in, I will cut him out and add him to the page. Just kind of quickly coloring him in. I've mentioned it before, but in case this is your first time watching one of my art journal pages, I stamp him on the text paper as well because I really think it coordinates nicely with the doll. Now I cut around his mouth so I could tuck one of those letters into his mouth. That's probably one of my very favorite things about this whole page. I think it's so cute that he's sitting there next to her holding that little letter in his mouth. I did add a few hearts to the left of her as well. I felt like that right side of the page was a little too heavy with the stamping and everything, and it looked a little blah on the left, so I added 3 stamped images over there, and then I'm gluing both the paper doll and Simon in place, and then gluing all of the little letters, kind of scattering them there on the ground next to the scene. And that will finish my page. I am using some acrylic blocks to hold those little glued pieces in place until the liquid glue dries. I just like to do that so it remains flat. Finally, I did add a little head adornment there from the Hats 2 stamp set from Prima. I love that little stamp set. I think it really completes the design. The supplies I've used are listed and linked below the video on YouTube. Thanks for watching, and please check out my other art journaling pages.